My first episode for y'all is a mini episode. I wanted to give you a bit of background about how I got here recording a podcast, which is one of the million things I said I would never do, and the kind of humor that it came about through a divinity school in Scotland, Grey's Anatomy, and a very Southern saying. So here we go. As many of you know, many of you don't, my husband's son and I moved to St. Andrews, Scotland in August of 2020 because that's what everybody wants to do directly in the middle of a global pandemic. But to be clear, we did plan on moving and decide to move a year before the pandemic started. We decided to move here so that my husband could attend St. Mary's Divinity School, which is at the University of St. Andrews. And for me, it was a season that held what felt like a lot of contradictory things. There was so much excitement about moving to this beautiful place that we have so fallen in love with and continuing to slow down our life, which is a process I had started even before I met my husband. So there was definitely a lot of excitement, a lot of joy, a lot of beauty. And then there was a lot of difficulty moving during a global pandemic, selling a house, selling things, putting things in storage, saying our goodbyes, and being in a place where we didn't and don't have the support that we had in the States. Also, there were kind of like shutdowns on the regular here in the UK. And then in December of 2020, my dad died. And I love my dad very much. And that was a really big, huge, kind of incomparable life loss for me. So I talk a lot in my work with my clients about holding grief and gratitude together as we navigate through life. And in that season and continuing, I was and have been living that reality of holding grief and gratitude in bigger and deeper ways than I ever have before. So during that season, I was processing a lot with my husband, and he, in a conversation, just introduced me to the concept of liminal space. To be honest, I'm a little concerned that I didn't know about it before, like in grad school, but I didn't. So here we are. So liminal space, in my understanding, is the place between things, when you have left something and you have not yet entered into what is next. And when I heard my husband talk about it as we were processing, and then I started to read more about it, I thought, that's it. That's where I am. Like, that's where I'm living. I'm living in liminal space. So there are two definitions that I found in my reading that kind of capture liminal space for me. I'm just going to share them with you. The first is from Richard Rohr, and he wrote, liminal space is an inner state and sometimes an outer situation where we can begin to think and act in new ways. It is where we are betwixt and between, having left one room or stage of life, but not yet entered the next. The second is from the Cambridge Art Association. They wrote, a liminal space is the time between what was and the next. It is a place of transition, a season of waiting and not knowing. Liminal space is where all transformation takes place if we learn to wait and let it form us. I really like that one a lot. I think that one's my favorite. As I continued to research, I found that in visual art, liminal space is often represented by hallways, especially kind of abandoned ones that look forlorn and pretty empty. I found an article by a man named Jake Petra, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from June of 2022. He wrote it for The Atlantic, and he wrote this. He was talking about the pandemic and visual representations of liminal space. Some of the most enduring images of the past 2.5 years have been photos of freshly abandoned public places. An empty Times Square, utterly calm Venice canals, a seemingly deserted Shanghai. Their immediate power came from their uncanny post-apocalyptic vision. This is what the world would look like without us. But years into a global pandemic, they now strike me as something else. Artifacts of a world in transition. Across the internet, another term for this genre of imagery predates the age of COVID-19. Liminal spaces can be found across Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok, where users post countless contextless, eerie pictures and videos that attempt to capture a state of being in between. Liminal spaces are now an aesthetic in online parlance, meaning where like-minded people see the compelling images and post variations on them. So, I was not the only one settling into the comfort of the concept of liminal space. Others around the world were experiencing it too. However, I may be the only one who then took a random clip from an episode of Grey's Anatomy and paired it with a Southern saying to express a new way of being in liminal space. Here's what I mean. So sometimes I'll watch videos on Facebook, like short clips of shows instead of watching the series. One day, I was mindlessly doing that. Yes, it is something I am working on. And a clip of Grey's Anatomy came up. I don't really watch Grey's Anatomy. No, don't have anything against it. I just don't really watch it. I think I might have watched a couple of episodes in graduate school, but that's so long ago that I can't really remember. So as I was watching this clip of an episode on Facebook, it was about a woman who was clearly very badly beaten and sexually assaulted. So male nurses and doctors would come into the room to treat her, and she would have huge trauma reactions, rightly so, to a man attempting to touch her. So the female nurses and doctors that were working with her came alongside her and were able to talk her into having an operation by telling her that no male doctor or nurse would be present with her. So she agrees to it, but they also go a step further than just saying no man will be present with you. As they are wheeling her bed out of her room to head to the operating room, they have gathered all the women in the hospital to line the hallway. And the men of the hospital are guarding the doors on the other side so that no man will enter. So when she's wheeled out of her hallway and she looks down the hallway, she sees faces of women just shoulder to shoulder along the entire hallway, all different shapes, sizes, colors, everything. And so when she came out of her room with, I'm sure, all of the trauma, all of the anxiety, she just saw the faces of women lining the hallways. And they didn't just do it in that hallway. They did it in the elevator and then down and then to the next hallway that led her to the operating room. Now, I do get that this is, Hollywood, a script, etc. And every time I watch it, because it's come up since then, I cry because it is so powerful. It's such a powerful image of how we can come together and be present in the hallway. So everywhere that she was taken, she saw the faces of women. So I sat there, after watching that clip, maybe the first or second time, I thought, we are so often told when one door closes, another opens, but it's hell in the hallway. And then I thought, what if it wasn't? What if the hallway was a place where we came together and helped each other? What if it wasn't a place of fear and all aloneness? What if it could sometimes be a place of rest, of connection, of tenderness, of story, of comfort, and sometimes maybe even growth? So that's how we got here. My kind husband introduced me to a concept from Divinity School. I started researching, came upon visual art representations of it, of hallways. And then I stumbled across a random clip of Grey's Anatomy and had a revisit of an old Southern saying. So here we are with a podcast called The Hallway. And we get to come together, share, and learn how to make a home in the hallway, how to be present with each other, how to be present with each other's fear, with our loneliness, and with all the challenges as we are in the in-between spaces. And here's what I want you to know. I have no belief that I have the answers here or know exactly how to do this or know enough about it to be even remotely an expert in this area. And I will share what I do know, how I practiced, what has definitely not worked, as I have been practicing this in my 20s, 30s, and now 40s. And I'm going to work really hard to gather others together who have spent some time in the hallway and have them have a space as they are willing to share their stories. So I hope you will come along with us. And if appropriate, gather some others alongside you too. Tell each other your stories, learn together, grow together. As cheesy as it may sound, we really are all in this together. So, welcome to the hallway.